Hello, this is John from Western Maine Defensive Tactics, and I'm back again with the Windlass Steelcraft Bowie from Legendary Arms. Now, through a couple of days of use, I've deemed this knife well worthy of some upgrades and some modifications. And for a guide, I used Bill Bagwell's Soldier Fortune article from back in the 80s, customizing a Bargain Bowie. If you haven't read this article, or if you're like me and you've read it a long time ago and you don't remember it, you need to get Bill's book if you don't already have it. Bowie's Big Knives and the Best of Battle Blades. It's a very good book. And in his article, Bill recommends you do things as far as modifications in a certain order. And I recommend that you don't use my video as a guide to do this. I recommend you get the article and use Bill's advice. Don't use just the brief description I'm going to give you here as your base of information. Read Bill's article. It's got a lot of good stuff in it. All right, to get started, I shortened the guard. I took about 3/4 of an inch off the ends, and that saved me about 3/4 of an ounce. And that one modification really improved the handling there. I have a slightly under 3-inch guard on this now. Moving forward on the blade, I took a little bit of width off it. Now, I was cautious when I did this and conservative because this knife has a pretty thin blade stock, and it develops its power and its forward weight through blade width, and I didn't want to reduce that significantly. So I just took a little bit off it. I also re-profiled the clip to give me a little bit sharper tip and more of a concave clip point for back cuts and for thrusting, and it's a lot finer point for point work as well. Moving back onto the handle, I took some of the blockiness out of it and slimmed down the thickness. And it's a nice smooth oval now. It's a lot more comfortable in the hand. Feels very good. I reduced some of the roughness that was here on the palm hook, and it really feels really good in my hand. I also eliminated that rattle in the guard, and what I have is a $40 Bowie knife that I have about 3 hours in, and it's a really nice performer and handles very well. Now, credit has to be given to knife maker Jim Dixon. He lives in the southern United States, and you don't see a whole lot out of Jim anymore. He writes for Fur Fist Game occasionally, and he originally turned me on to the Legendary Arms knives back in the, I think it was the late 80s or early 90s. I'm not sure when he came out with these, but I read a couple of articles he wrote in a Gun Digest book that recommended Legendary Arms for a source of basic high carbon steel knives with a good spring temper for useful outdoor work that were, inexpensive. You don't see a lot of these knives in the media as far as working tools. Sure, you'll see some like, Atlantic Cutlery will come out with one that is a certain profile of Bowie knife, a Confederate D-guard or something like that, and people have the impression that a lot of these knives aren't useful, and some of them are not. This one is. And it seems like these should get a lot more credit or press as far as in I guess what we would call the working knife media, but they don't for some reason. And that's too bad because these are actually very good knives, and credit has to go to Jim for putting that information out there. And it really helped me out at a time I didn't have a lot of money, and I picked up my Ames knife because of it. Now, this will always be a $40 knife. It's never going to be a Trailmaster. It won't hold an edge quite as long, but it will hold a good edge long enough. And it gets very sharp. I like the way the steel sharpens up. Is it going to be a Trailmaster? Well, no. It's never going to be a high-dollar knife. But let me tell you, this knife has it where it counts. Whereas you could buy other knives, and I've really searched the below $50 knife category on the internet and everywhere else to find some decent under $50 Bowie knives to review. And like I said before, this is the cream of the crop. I'm pretty damn sure of it now, because I can't find anything else that even is halfway well constructed of carbon steel or even a stainless steel knife. There are some knives that look good, but they've got glaring flaws in one area or another, where this doesn't. This has pretty much everything it really needs for a working knife. It has it where it counts, like I've said. And you could modify a Pakistani or Chinese Bowie into something else that might please you to the eye, but again, those knives don't have the basic steel and heat treatment and tang design that this knife does. So it's really kind of a moot point to modify those into something else, in my opinion. Even some of the more expensive Chinese and Pakistani made knives aren't. They're not as good a quality as they should be for the money. But I'm not going to harp on negativity. This knife I really think is the cream of the crop. What you get for your $40 and about 3 hours invested is you get a nice handling, fairly lightweight knife. This knife went from 18 ounces in its original configuration to 16 now, and it didn't really suffer any reduction in power and chopping power and snap cutting power and things like that. In fact, I'll say the slimming down kind of gave it more power. It made it a little bit quicker, a little bit faster in the hand, and it chops right along. It's a nice little knife. It has limitations due to the thickness of the steel, because of the edge grind and things like that, and those really can't be helped, but you really can get out there and do a lot of work with this little knife for a little bit of money. I'm actually going to make a sheath up for it and use it as a woods bumming, casual carry, and loner Bowie knife, and I really think it's going to suit that role very well. Well, I hope this video helped you out. I hope it turns you on to maybe a new product you hadn't considered. And give these knives a shot. They're actually a real good value. All right, you take care. Thank you for watching.